Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's been a little bit since my last update here. I just wasn't able to fully post the last one a little while ago, but back now, actually, with the two updates. The first one that I'm updating, number 3, is a little bit old, and this one is what we'll talk about right now, which is the big one. And this is right after a couple big things, which primarily is the Juventus win. That has been the big topic, and overall, it was a surprising win because I don't think anybody really gave Milan that big of a chance to win this. There was always the possibility, but in the fashion that we won it, I don't really think that anybody really predicted that. So I'm going to go over a little bit of my own player ratings as well as what went well in the win, and then I'll cover a little bit of the transfer market, where we should go from here, what things we should be looking at. Part of it is exactly with what links we're dealing with, as well as some of my own thoughts. And lastly, we'll go over some of the upcoming matches, which is notably Torino and Cagliari. Okay, so we will start with the big news, and that is the incredibly impressive win over Juventus 3-0, which means a lot more than winning 2-0 or 1-0 or 2-1. And that's because the first time around when we played Juventus, they beat us 3-1. So now beating them 3-0 puts us ahead on goal differential versus them, which gives us the leg up in the head-to-head, which is so huge I can't even say, because right now we have the leg up on Napoli head-to-head. So if we do tie them at the end, we go to the Champions League over them. And now if for some reason Juventus pulls up 3 points here, and then we end up docking 3 points from us, or we lose a game that we shouldn't maybe, and we tie them, we also would go. So we have the upper leg against both of those teams, which is awesome news, since they are our two most direct rivals. Lazio's still in there, but really it's Juve and Napoli who are our most direct rivals to finish in 4th spot. So it was looking really grim after we just got dominated by Lazio recently, and we had some really bad losses and draws, notably against Sassuolo when we were leading. Genoa we barely pulled off. I mean, it's been really dicey recently, and actually for the past 4 months it's been really dicey. We have not been a team who has looked like a top 4 team over the past 4 months, and this win came out of nowhere. I think a lot of it had to do with Zlatan and his influence over this game and over this team. If anybody watched the entire match, you saw at the beginning, they were in a circle. Zlatan was the only one speaking. Basically, everybody just shut their mouths, and Zlatan spoke. He inspired them, whatnot. Benacer, I believe, came out and said something about Zlatan's inspiration. It just kind of shows you how much of a leader he is. And while everybody, maybe hit or miss on Pioli, I think overall he's done a good job, but I don't think he's an amazing manager. And in my opinion, the influence of Zlatan has been the most important thing for this team, and you see it. First half of the season, he was generally healthy. He was there most games, and we won. We went on a massive streak. He was so important for us. Now, second half of the season, he's been injured constantly, barely has been back, but every time he's there, he essentially gives us that extra motivation, that extra leader on the field, and we do so much better. I guarantee if Ibrahimovic was not here this game to start out for the first 60 minutes until he got injured, we probably would have either tied or lost this game. Without Ibra, I don't think we come ahead in this game. Benacer was back in form, which is great to see. In my last update, I was saying, Benacer has been pretty poor ever since he got back from his injury. I haven't seen anything decent from him, and it's too bad because he was such a stalwart in midfield. I mean, his ball control, his agility is just remarkable. His close control and ability to get out of situations is great. He still made some mistakes in the Juventus game, still gave away some cheap passes, but his control was so much better, and we're starting to see the old Benacer, and this is really good because we're going to need him to finish out this season here. So, and it's kind of what I said in my last post, was that if Benacer is looking like he's back in form in practice, then he is definitely the starter. If he's not, then you got to play Tonali. I don't want to see Mate getting another game of a minute for this team. It's just not worth it when you got a player like Tonali who was in great form or starting to really become something, and then he just hasn't really played in a long time now, and I just don't see why you give him Mate minutes, in my opinion. But I'll touch on that a little bit later. Another big point, defense, very solid, especially on the right side. Look at what they caused. I think Chiesa got by Calabria maybe one time. Yeah, I believe he got by him one time earlier on in the game, and then ever since then, no. And he had to deal with a lot of threats there. I mean, you're dealing with Cristiano Ronaldo, you're dealing with Chiesa, who's been Juve's best player for most of the season. I mean, it was a lot of overload on that side. Even Alexandro is a threat there. So amazing job by Calabria. I think people forget how important he is to this team, and how solid, consistent, and stable he is. I mean, he's never bad. I can't remember a single game where Calabria hasn't been excellent, or at least very good. Teo Hernandez is either amazing or terrible, which today I would actually say, or yesterday rather, when I watched the game, he was actually kind of right, like a little bit above average, which is a very unique game for Teo, because he never plays like that. He's always, that kind of hit or miss type of player. He's been this season very streaky, but he really stepped it up, and I'm really happy with that. Which is actually my next point, is that he finally wasn't going too far up the field unnecessarily. He made some bombing runs, which I thought they were well timed, but it was when he had cover, and Kessié wasn't pushing too far up the field. He was playing a little bit more composed, a little more controlled, which I like. I think Pioli has to hammer this in to Kessié. You are not a box-to-box. You can get up there sometimes, a couple of times throughout the game when it happens, go for it. But please don't be box-to-box if you can avoid it. Help out a little bit in attack when you can be supportive, but your main role is to be that kind of DM, CM, and not pure center mid. And that's what I like, because once we took Kessié out of that role to where he was playing in the three-man midfield, he was more free to go up front. He was terrible, and Kessié has not been good for us any year besides this past one and then half of last year. And that's because his position changed. He's now primarily a D-mid who also plays some center mid. Keep him there, keep him back for the most part, especially when Teo goes bombing up there. Kessié's got to hang back a little bit to provide that support in case they expose Teo on the runs. That is something that was so much better. Teo wasn't going up too much, so he didn't get burned, and Kessié was actually properly covering most of those runs. So great job this time. I will say, I think a lot of it had to do with Andrea Pirlo really, for lack of a better term, really shitting the bed. He didn't even run Chiesa on the right side. Whereas if you look at game one, there's two things that I remember about game one. We were dominated by Paulo Dybala and Federico Chiesa. And Pirlo decides to not play Dybala at all until like 5 minutes left, and he decides to run Chiesa on the left. Why? Of course, I'm glad he did it because Milan got a nice victory here, but Juventus, they had a field day with us with having Chiesa just run Teo ragged and just dominate us. And then Dybala, because he's kind of quick, he has a lot of just great, sneaky, tricky moves. Why would you not put him in? So he took his two biggest weapons against us and hamstringed Chiesa, and then didn't even play Dybala. So, well done, Pirlo. Thank you for helping out Milan. I know that your heart still lies here, so thank you, buddy. On to some more positives for us. Kyra and Tomori, I believe, was the right pairing for this game. And I think a lot of it was due to we were anticipating Chiesa being able to get into the box more, especially if Chiesa would have been on the right side. He would have been coming up against Tomori a lot more often, and that would have been really, really important because we would have needed that pace. That's exactly why I actually really like our center backs. I know everybody hates on Romagnoli, and I always not really defend him because I think he's been relatively poor most of the season, but I just don't think he's as bad as people make him out to be. And I think he forms a great pairing with Tomori also. So it really just depends on what you're going up against. If you're going up against kind of stronger strikers physically, a little bit more kind of shifty tactical stuff like that, then I think Romagnoli Kyer is even a good pairing, or Romagnoli Tomori. But when you're going up against somebody who is more of a ground runner, is very speedy, very quick, then Tomori is the guy. That's why we have him. He's not a great aerial marker, we know that, but that's fine because Kyer and Romagnoli are. So Tomori is beautiful against that, and I think that's why he was the right pairing here. I know that Romagnoli Tomori played great in the game prior, but I do think that Kyer's extra physicality was going to be important here, and his commanding presence there was going to be important, and Tomori's speed was going to be important for who we were going up against. So I think definitely right call here, and it was paid off. That being said, I don't actually think it was that important because Juventus just didn't cause anything. We can say yes that they played very well, and they did. Kyer Tomori played very, very well. Tomori even got a goal, which was awesome, but they didn't really do too much if you look at it. It was more kind of simple headers, cutting out simple balls. They were never really called into great action. They never really needed to be, which is awesome. I would rather have that any day than having to make our defenders do last minute, interceptions or making sure they have absolutely flawless positioning. It's really just more that Juventus just didn't show up. They were completely terrible. I've actually never seen Juventus this scared, this unsure, this unthreatening. It was crazy. I mean, I've never seen this. So while they did a good job, they didn't really have to do a great job today. I feel like you could have run any of our center back pairings and they probably would have been fine. Strange to say that, but I think this was the right pairing, but probably didn't matter too much. Next point is that the Ibra influence is immeasurable. When he's there, we always have a shot. When he's not there, it's dicey. I'm really worried about his injury because these next 2 games here against Torino and Cagliari are must-win games. We win them, we're in Champions League. That's it. Our fate is in our own hands. And without Ibra, we still should be winning these games, but it's so much more dicey. I mean, I just don't want to see Rafael Leao up top. I don't want to see it. It's never worked for us. I hope that Pioli's learned his lesson. We'll see. But man, I hope Ibra can at least heal up, at least for one of these next 2 games. I know that he is planning on being back for Atalanta, which is great, but to be honest, we're probably going to lose to Atalanta anyways because we always lose to them. They just play so much quicker than us. So really, I think we need him back for one of these 2 games so we can secure Champions League. And then Pioli this time, great starting lineup. I really liked what he did because he had a more fluid team this time. I've been giving him a lot of flack for just running the same stagnant 4-2-3-1. Now, because you have Ibra, I always say you can run it. It's possible. When Ibra is out, I don't think it's a good formation for us because it doesn't really fit our personnel. It just really doesn't. That being said, you did have more of an ideal scenario. You had Salamakers, who has been playing very well recently. You've got Hakan, who's starting to improve his play. You've got Ibra back to play that slot. And then it's just a decision over who's going to win that last spot. Is it going to be Rebic out wide? Is it going to be Leao? Is it going to be Diaz, who would be better centrally? And they did go with that, which I thought was a really smart idea. And it's because Diaz is not only able to play as an attacking mid, he was able to shift up sometimes and play closer to Zlatan, give him somebody to play off to, and almost give him that attacking mid / second striker look. And that kind of 3-man there in the 4-2-3-1, 3-man kind of straight across, was swapping positions and giving Juventus different looks. And I thought that was at least some proper modification to our stagnant, dry, old 4-2-3-1. And I really am happy that Pioli did that here. Awesome job as far as the starting lineup goes and the starting tactics goes. I know that it was definitely in his plans to hold Teo back more. You could visibly see it, which was huge. That's been one of my biggest pet peeves. He actually played well defensively because of it. He wasn't just gone, leaving the entire time and leaving our defense stranded. I loved it. I thought it was a really well-composed team. This is how we need to start. Now, next few games here, it's going to be different because we don't have Ibra, but we'll see. His subs were hit or miss. The Rebic sub just made sense. I was so glad to not see Rafael Leao playing up front at striker and have Rebic plays that kind of false 9 because he's a smarter player. He's trickier. He comes up more in big games typically, and especially if you're going to run him there. If you're going to play them out wide maybe, you could maybe have an argument for possibly Leao, but he's been so poor recently, and he's going to be fine. I mean, he's a young kid, but Rebic is going to give you those kind of class goals that he gave you this time periodically. Leao is not going to do that here all the time. When he is really confident on form, yeah, he's probably going to be good, but he's pretty streaky so far, and I'm not sure I would trust such a young kid who's been very streaky to come in a massive game. So great sub there. On the contrary, incredibly poor sub by bringing on Swalio Mate. It's like he thinks that because he has a good physique and he looks strong, that he's going to play strong or be, a defensive enforcer, and it's totally wrong. Not once has Mate shown any defensive prowess ever. Maybe he'll win a couple aerial balls because he's taller than Tonali, but Tonali has actually read the game defensively better. He's created more defensive stops and interceptions as far as in bigger moments than Mate, and he actually works harder and he's faster. So what does Mate give you there besides the illusion that he's going to be strong and play like a strong defensive mid-role? Because he doesn't. For example, he comes on, 5 minutes after he comes on, Paulo Dybala comes in from the right side. He cuts in towards the center, smokes Mate, and then Mate runs into our other defender who is trying to come out and mark Dybala. Literally runs into him. They both almost fall over because Mate does what he does. Now Dybala is free. He fires a shot, almost scores. If that goal goes in, we now win 3-1, which means we no longer have the advantage over Juve in the head-to-head, which is so crucial, I can't even say. So what the heck are you doing there, Pioli? He's still up to his old poor subs, making decisions we don't understand. I get that Tonali was on a yellow and he doesn't want to risk him, but you're not playing the guy anyways. At least put him in for this massive game where you can at least guarantee a smarter player is on the field. I didn't get it. It was a really poor move there, but overall, I gotta say that Pioli has had his best match in a long time. Now we'll move on to, I'll just do a quick rundown of the Transfer Mercato before I move into the next few games that we've got coming up here. A lot of it's going to be repeats from previous posts because nothing much has really changed. There's been some movement, but we'll see. I'll start off with our loans. Sandro Tonali, we should definitely sign him. I think that he's shown some good prowess. He has improved consistently throughout the season. He hasn't really been streaky. He's actually just shown consistent improvement. Kind of shaky at the beginning, didn't really have confidence. Now that's starting to build. I don't know what's going to happen now because Pioli has really kind of left him out of the team recently, which has been pretty strange because he's actually been quite good the past several games he's played. So I don't get it, but once again, I don't really understand a lot of what Pioli does. Next, Tomori. A big chink in his armor showed the past few weeks, and he's not infallible, and he has really big weaknesses. But you know what? He fits our center backs perfectly. He pairs great with Romagnoli because he covers his weaknesses, and he pairs great with Kjaer because he covers his weaknesses. Sometimes when it's Kjaer and Tomori, they can both play a little bit too aggressive, and they can get beat by those more sneaky, tricky attacking players, which is why I'm so glad that Dybala didn't play. But you know what? Overall, I think that he fits the team well. I really enjoy how he has been integrating himself into the team. I feel like he's fully bought into Milan, and I love seeing that. And I feel like we shouldn't sell Romagnoli because going into next season with Tomori, Kjaer, Romagnoli, Gabbia, I feel really confident that any pairing of those four will work. And then you have that extra backup in Pierre Kalulu, or we're probably gonna be getting back Caldara, who honestly, if he can put his injury behind him, he was an amazing prospect. So who knows, he could be, as I said in the last one, a dark horse to regain his form and be an awesome player. We'll see. Either way, I think that's a great center back core for next season. So we should definitely redeem Tomori. Try to get a discount if we can, but we'll see. Probably won't be able to. Diogo Dalot. I really like Dalot. I think that he is also one of the guys who's bought into Milan. People give him a little bit of flack, but he's versatile. He can play on both sides. He can play in a wing-back position. He can play in a midfielder's position. He can play left, right. I mean, what more do you want from a guy? He's versatile. He's quality. He fights hard for the shirt. I don't know. I think he's awesome. And actually, as I always say, he's way better when he plays on the left side defense than when he plays on the right. And so he's the perfect deputy to Teo. He's a more kind of controlled, composed, a little bit better ball control player, and obviously not as explosive. But when you need a little bit better option like that, when Teo's out, he's perfect. And then for the right side, I mean, I'm sure that he'll do okay, but we should probably pick up, like, I honestly, I know I'm getting into a little bit more of what I'll be going to do a little bit later, but I would pick up somebody like a Paulo Giglione to sub on for Davide Calabria. Every game that I've seen of his, he plays very, very solid. Pretty solid defensively, great attacking, great crosses, and he's going to be super cheap. So that's a great sub. And then we have Kalulu, who can also sub out there and kind of be you can choose between Giglione and between Kalulu for that spot behind Calabria. I think that makes a very solid core there. I would still try to get Dalot for a discount if possible, since I think his price is just a little bit too expensive, but we'll see. Either way, I would sign him if the price is right. Brahim Diaz, same as my opinion last time. I would try to extend his loan by a year, but this time I would really fight to include an option to buy. I feel like he's shown some flashes of brilliance, especially with this past game. He was just on fire, and by far the best player of this last game. But he's also been showing that he can disappear, and he dribbles too much and doesn't look for his teammates too much. So it's definitely hit or miss with Brahim. So I think the best option is to extend that loan, try to include an option to buy this time, just in case he continues this type of form here, because he couldn't be a total stunner, and if he stays with that and keeps improving, he could be a dynamite player. Spalletti Mete, I think everybody knows my opinions on Mete. I think it was a great choice to bring him in for super cheap to see if he would work out. He's not working out. He's not Milan quality. Please don't put him on the field. He deceives Pioli somehow. Maybe Pioli's just really into buff dudes, maybe. But he's a bad player, so get him out of here. Mandzukic, I wouldn't sign him unless he's willing to just stay on as like a fourth string for a very, very minimal salary. So that's the only way that I would keep Mandzukic, is if he's like, you know what, I want to stay here. I'll take a super low salary just to kind of play a couple games and be a good, a good presence. So I think that's what I would do with Mandzukic. Okay, Transfer Mercato, renewals, Donnarumma. I'm not going to go into it too much. I would personally sign him, maybe look to sell him because we could probably make a ton of money off of that. Or, you sign him, and if he actually wants to commit for several years rather than just doing a stupid bridge contract, which is a lot been talked about. I don't like the bridge contract because that means we're going to have to deal with the whole situation with Raiola again very soon. So if he signs, I'd either want a long-term contract, which then we could consider actually, hey, Donnarumma, you're kind of our guy like we kind of planned on. Otherwise, though, if it's just a bridge contract, I would actually look to sign and sell him. There's plenty of good goalkeepers out there, and if he's going to put us through this year after year, I don't think it's worth it. I like Gigio. He's top class. He can be a club symbol, but he's only going to get so many more free passes when he keeps pulling these stunts with Raiola. And I'm sure all of it started with Raiola, but Donnarumma does have some say too, so he can stop all this. Çalhanoğlu still holding out, which is ridiculous because, yes, he deserves a small pay bump, but it's a small pay bump because he's been crap for most of his time with us. He's been good for maybe a total of 5 to 6 months of his Milan career. Maybe a little more. That's it. And when he's good, he can be very good, but he can fade away so much. So honestly, I would do the same thing. I would be a little bit more staunch about this. I would definitely sign and sell Çalhanoğlu. There's so many players out there. You've got Rodrigo de Paul, who I think is just a far better player, much more consistent in general. You've got Gaetano Castrovilli. You've got Matthias Zaccagni. You got a bunch of players, even Brahim Diaz if he stays. You could even consider running Hauga as a backup. Maldini hopefully will be coming into his own. There's just a lot of options for starters plus backups there that we don't really need. Hakan, if he stays for a solid fee and we don't have to, bump his contract up too much, great. Otherwise, if we can sign him and sell him, that's also great. I just don't think we should sign him for a high contract. I think it's pretty cruddy of him to hold out for this because he definitely doesn't deserve it. He's just trying to bleed us dry, similar to Gigio, but he's been even less good than Gigio because at least Donnarumma has been a great keeper for several seasons, whereas Çalhanoğlu has been good for half a season, so definitely not deserving. Romagnoli, I don't believe he wants that big of a contract increase, but the hard thing is that he hasn't played that great this season to deserve any increase. He really should be kept at the same price here, same salary. If it's a small increase, okay, fine, even though he doesn't really deserve it, because I think that we were not going to want to lose him on a free, and even though his contract's not due this year, this is kind of the time where we want to lock him down, and if you want to look for a sale, you can, but I don't think we want to get into the situation next year where now Romagnoli's not renewing, and of course, his agent, Raiola, so that's going to be a problem. So I do think that we should sign him as long as the salary increase isn't too high, and actually I think that as long as, he knows that he's not starting every single game now, and he's going to be sharing time with Kyra and Tomori, I think that'd be great to keep him, because as I said earlier, that four-man of having Kyer, Romagnoli, Tomori, Gabbia, I think is really solid. Gabbia is only getting better. That's a really great four-man group right there that I feel confident going into next season with. Franck Kessié, definitely lock him down. He deserves a decent salary bump. Technically, he actually has been quite bad for most of his time with Milan, but I feel like now that we know who Kessié is, people are stopped playing the illusion that he can be this center mid attacking guy. No. Just play him at DMCM. He's going to be a great player. Now that we know that, and the Kessié is starting to come into his own, he deserves a solid pay bump. He doesn't deserve an astronomical one, but he deserves a solid one. Similar with Calabria, he also deserves a solid one. He's, I think, he's probably been our most consistent player all season, followed by Kessié. And those two have been our stalwarts. If you had to pick two guys who game in, game out, every single day show up, and every single game play above average to great, it's those two. So I would definitely give them a good solid pay raise. All right, who to some of the, players returning in the summer. I'm not going to go too long on this. Laxalt, I would love to sell him to Celtic. We just don't need him. But if he comes back, we could try to find another team for him and sell him. Andrea Conti, I would definitely sell him. He hasn't been the same since his injury. He's not worth anything right now. So if we can get even a couple mil, that'd be great. Pobega, I think we just keep him for next season unless we find a more suitable upgrade. But he's shown that he's been pretty solid. I say, we at the very least keep him on loan, so we keep a hold of him, because I don't like selling off our young players before they reach their potential. Because what if he has a breakout season next season? He's already been good this season. What if he has a breakout season next season? We're gonna regret it, just like we've regretted, a lot of our old transfers with Locatelli, with Cristante, and all the bunch of our young talents that we've let go of. Caldara, I think that you could go a couple ways on him. You could look to sell him to somebody else, because I don't think the Atalanta is going to redeem him. If he can rediscover his form, he is going to be the kind of surprise for us, because when he was on form, he was one of the top defenders in Serie A. He has all the tools necessary. And honestly, if you ask me, if we had that Caldara before his injury, Caldara Tomori seems like an amazing partnership. But we'll see. And actually, he would pair well with any of our defenders. Kjaer, Romagnoli, Tomori. So I think that he would do great if he can rediscover his form. If not, though, then we could use him maybe as just a pure sale, or he can be just backup depth if we do get rid of Romagnoli. And then lastly, we could use him in a kind of swap deal with some cash for a player like Matteo Lovato or something like that. So a lot of options with Caldara, but we will see what happens. All right, so now we'll get into some of the new links here. Strikers and center forwards, we've been looking primarily at Belotti, Vlahovic, Scamacca, and then there's been some other names tossed around like Darwin Nunez, Daniel Malin, Memphis Depay, and Sergio Aguero. I personally would be happy with any of the three coming, Belotti and Vlahovic and Scamacca, with Belotti and Vlahovic way above that. I think that we missed the boat on Vlahovic. It was somebody that I was looking at last year for us, but his price is now going to be somewhere around 60 million, which, who knows? I mean, I do think that he's probably going to be worth it in the long run. At that, at 40 million, I think it's a definite go. At 60 million, who knows? But he can be a good deputy to Ibra. He's strong. He's big without being, gumpy. He's actually pretty quick. I mean, I think that he's kind of like the perfect heir to him. I think that Scamacca actually plays relatively similar to Ibra, but I don't think he's at the level of Vlahovic. Maybe Scamacca needs another year, but then again, at a much lower price, maybe he's the guy and can become excellent in about a year's time. So I like Scamacca. I like Vlahovic. I think that Vlahovic is probably, as I said, a year ahead of Scamacca, but the price also significantly reflects that. So we'll see. I feel like Scamacca, you could probably land around 20, even though there's been some rumors that saying, the Sassuolo president wanted to bump his price up to like 40, which is ridiculous. He's not going to go for that. So Belotti's price somewhere in between. He's probably going to be in that kind of 30 million range, which is crazy, seeing that his price used to be 60, 70, 80, but now that he's a year away from his contract, it's funny, but I think with our budget and with who we need, I think Belotti's going to fit us the best. I think that he's going to be a reasonable price. He's a Milanista for sure. He fits us. He can play that role where he can help set up play. His work rate is remarkable. And so I think that that's probably going to fit us the best. That's the most realistic in my opinion. But now Roma is going to be in for him with Mourinho, so that may change the game significantly for us. And usually when we're competing with a certain team, we almost always lose. I've noticed that recently. We never really kind of get that certain signing. The only one I can remember is getting Tonali, and that's just because he's been a lifelong Milan fan. Maybe the same thing will happen with Belotti because he's been a lifelong Milan fan too, but usually we've been losing those battles. We lost out on Stefano Sensi. We lost out on Nicolo Barella. So many players over the past few years. So those would be my choices. I think Belotti, Vlahovic, any one of those I'd be really, really happy with. Vlahovic, I think he is, the guy. He's probably like the next young guy who can be closer to Haaland. I think Haaland is just remarkable. I love how strong he plays, but Vlahovic can be dang good too. But for 60 million, it's hard. And then Scamacca would be a nice cheaper option as well. So I'd be happy with any of those. I don't want to get Daniel Malin. It's another Raiola client. I think that's really stupid of us to go down that road. Darwin Nunez, I don't think that's going to be the guy. He might be. I mean, he's pretty talented, but not playing in the same league. We've had a lot less looks at him. I don't think that's worth it. I'd rather go with those other three first. And then you got Memphis Depay and Sergio Aguero. I think Aguero is going to be unrealistic. I don't think he's coming. Depay, I really, really, really think we should get this guy. If he actually is coming on a free transfer, I think we need to go hard for him and get him. He's super versatile, can play striker, center forward, attacking mid, or out wide left or right. This is the guy. This is like a top-notch talent that we can play anywhere up there. Man, it's just such a good signing. I think that we need to be focusing on this one big time. So I think it would be great if we could lock up 2 of those there. If we got like Depay Belotti or Depay Vlahovic, Depay Skamaka, I'd be super happy. It's a massive upgrade to our attacking unit. And then Ibrahimovic, he can be injured for half the season, and we're still fine. So that would be a huge boon to our attack. Next, let's move to the wingers/attacking mid role. You got Orsolini, Vlasic, Kvaratskhelia, Zaccagni, Icone, and Domenico Berardi. In my opinion, I think what we need is somebody who's going to give us a different look, a little bit more quality, and a little bit more of a goal-scoring threat as opposed to Salamakers. And in my opinion, that's going to be Berardi. Berardi's ready to go. He's in his prime. He's not too old. He's not too young. He's a perfect combination there. He's a team leader as he is captain, so it gives us another leader personality on the field. I think he's perfect because something that Salamakers doesn't really do is cut from outside in, create a wonderful cross for a goal scoring opportunity, or be able to shoot himself. I mean, he hasn't really posed that goal scoring threat. He's got the work rate, he's got the tools, he's very agile. I mean, I think Salamakers can really become a dynamite player, but he's not there yet. So I'd like to get somebody who's ready now, and they can trade time with Salamakers. Based on your opponent, you're going to want to run probably Berardi more of the time if you need that goal scoring threat, but if you need more work rate, more kind of effort, more drive, a little bit more pace, then Salamakers is going to be your guy. Plus, Salamakers is versatile, and you could probably also run him as an attacking mid and run Berardi out wide on the right if we don't have, Hakan. So we'll see, but I think that's actually like the ideal choice for us. He gives us a different look. I like Jonathan Icone, but I just think that he's essentially a better version right now of Salamakers. They play similarly. He's got a totally different skill set than your Orsolini, than your Berardi. So I don't think that's what I would go with, because I think that's kind of shorting Salamakers. That's essentially just saying, go sit on the bench. We're just going to replace you with the exact same guy who's maybe a little bit more ready right now. But if Salamakers develops into that quality of player within a year, then we'd be wasting money essentially. So I would actually get Berardi, and then if he's too expensive, I would actually get Orsolini, because Orsolini is kind of like Berardi light. He's the same thing. He could become better than him in the future. Right now he's not, but he plays similarly. He gives us that quality, that great crossing ability, that goal scoring ability to cut in on his left foot. So very technical player as well. So I think that I would actually go with Berardi or Orsolini. Ideally Berardi, but secondary Orsolini. And actually, I would still look at Mattia Zaccagni. I believe that he was waiting for Milan, and that's why he didn't choose to sign for Napoli, because I think he wants it. And honestly, he's great. He's versatile, would be an awesome upgrade on our left side, because he's going to be a lot more consistent than Leao. Rebic, between him and Rebic, things would be kind of a battle for who starts, but that's great. The thing about Zaccagni is he can also play attacking mid. And so if we do get rid of Hakan, or even if we don't, he could either start or sub. He can be very, very versatile, and it would be nice to have a massive upgrade to where when Hakan's not playing right now, that attacking midfield role is kind of, we don't really know what's going to happen. Yes, Diaz stepped up recently, but we don't know what's going to happen. So it'd be nice to have Zaccagni to be there to either start or sub, and he can be a top-notch player to play out wide as well. So I really like that signing as well. So ideally, I would get either Berardi or Orsolini, and then maybe pick up Zaccagni for some depth if Hakan's gone. I think you could still get him, as I was saying, if Hakan's here, but that just may be too much strain on our budget. Then we're going to move back to the midfielders. I think overall, we're going to be bringing back Pobega, who can be good depth. I really hope we don't keep Mete. I like what I'm seeing from Lokonga. He seems like he's like a more stronger ball winner type, and I like that, because I think what we need, we've already got Tonali, who can either back up or start for the Benacer role, to kind of play, playmaker, ball control, distributor type of player. I think that's great. But we don't really have a backup for Kessié. That's what we thought we were getting in Mete, but Mete is super lazy. He doesn't use his strength that, he looks like he's physically strong, but he doesn't play like it. So it's like we got a waste of a player there. Lokonga looks more aggressive. He looks like he can do it. As long as he makes sure that he kind of chills back in that kind of DMCM spot, I think that sounds like a great option. Other options would be Matthias Svanberg is more of an attacking mid, so I'm not really that super big on him. I know he can play more of that center mid role, but I don't think he gives us that battling that we really want. Jordi Schouten, I think, is actually somebody who's very, very underrated. He's very composed, controlled. He plays back deep. He's actually quite a good defender, so he could do it as well. My choice right now would be Lokonga, but Schouten could do it as well. But we'll see what happens here, because a lot's going to maybe change with. I don't know if we're redeeming Mete. I really hope we're not, but if we do, I think that we've just taken a big hit in our midfield. Center back wise is going to be pretty dang easy. Redeem Tomori. That's pretty easy. He already fits. He's kind of bought into the Milan system. We're still looking at Milenkovic, still looking at Lovato, and I think maybe if Romagnoli leaves, then you could pick up a Milenkovic or a Lovato. And then we'll see, with Caldara coming back too, maybe you could work him into a deal. As I was saying, I think we should keep either one of Romagnoli or Caldara based on whoever wants to stay, and then you sell off the other one and you try to get a Matteo Lovato or a Milenkovic. I personally prefer Lovato. Milenkovic is good and strong, but I think that you kind of want that more kind of composed control guy in Lovato, especially next to a Fikayo Tomori, because if you got two ball winners back there, they're not really going to be good against the same type of player here. So I've seen a little more composure from Lovato. Milenkovic, I've seen more good ball winning capabilities. So I like that composure next to a Tomori for long term, because when Tomori's free to do his thing and be more aggressive because he knows his partner can be more composed, that's going to be a beautiful thing, and that's exactly what he needs. That's why he actually pairs it incredibly well with Romagnoli, because he plays more of a composed game, and then sometimes he's awesome with Kyer, which we saw recently, but it also can fail a lot, which in the past several games, it's been quite a poor pairing of those two. So we will see, but that would be my suggestion. Looking forward, I'll do kind of a quick recap here. These are some of the formations that I would go with. Kind of can take a quick browse here. That would be if we went with the 4-2-3-1. Kind of got some of the signings, your Depay, maybe consider Castrovilli, Zaccagni, Berardi as some of those ones up top, Vlahovic, Belotti. And then the 3-4-1-2 I think would be a great idea for us. Kind of run like that. Similar players, but the only one that I would also consider for that would be a Lazzari. I think he's been awesome. He can play left or right and would be great to share time with Teo, with Calabria. That way we wouldn't really lose too much when Teo's out, because Lazzari is blazing fast and has been awesome. So also the benefit here is that you don't have to change any of your center backs. Romagnoli, Kyer, Tomori all would fit that perfectly. Your backups can be excellent. If you have Matteo Gabbia, you've got either Lovato or Caldara, and then you've got Kalulu playing that kind of right center back position. You actually are pretty dang set. So it works out very well. I think that's what I would prefer us going to, but I could totally see us remaining with the 4-2-3-1 if Pioli's been very consistent with it. So we'll see. Good options for both. We just got to get the right players in to make us have actual proper depth and proper starting quality. So Milan versus Torino going to come up midweek here. Massive game. If we beat them and we beat Cagliari, we're done. Champions League qualified. A couple big things, and it's kind of similar between the two games here. We have to come out strong from the start and get an early lead. AC Milan is so much better when you come out strong. We win most of our games that way, or at least we have a good shot at it. When we get scored on first, I don't even think we've ever come back from it. But either way, I don't want to be in that position. I say we start with the exact same starting lineup. Now, this is not my preferred formation for us, because over the past few months, we've been absolutely terrible with it. Our team just can't function. But if we start with the same lineup, you have to put Rebic up top. Please do not start Rafael Leao. It has never worked for us in the 4-2-3-1. It's been awful the past few months here. Stop the experiment. If you're going to play Leao, put him out wide on the left. That's it. That's all. That's the only spot that I want to see him. If we're going with this formation, it's okay. If we want to switch it up and Pioli decides to kind of be a little wild, then we could go for a 4-3-1-2, which gives us a little bit more stability, and then you can run Leao in tandem with Rebic or something like that if you wanted to play that way. We'll see also if Diaz is injured, because if he's not injured, then I think that he may be a shoe-in to start. You got to kind of reward the people who are in form, and with what he pulled off this past game, you got to play him. So we'll see who's playing here, but I know Pioli is going with the 4-2-3-1. It is what it is. So I would really like to see Rebic playing up top, and I just don't want to see Leao starting up top. I think that we're in for a bad time if that happens. Thing is, I don't want Pioli to be afraid to change it. If it doesn't seem like it's working, it's not successful, and we're not penetrating, then we need to change this up, because we're about to play two teams that play with essentially our nemesis formation. A three-man back line flooding the midfield and then playing a couple up top. Both Torino and Cagliari play this way. So if it's not working, like it hasn't worked several times in the past, please don't be afraid to switch it up. Switch the guys to a 4-3-1-2 or switch them to a 4-3-3. This adds more people in midfield for midfield stability, because what happens is oftentimes our two-man midfield cannot handle 3 to 4 guys running around them. It's just not feasible. And then our defense gets exposed because they have to cover area that they shouldn't be in. And there you go. So if this happens, change to either a 4-3-1-2 or a 4-3-3 to keep things relatively similar but playing in a different way. Then you add stability. And of course, last but not least, no Mete. He's going to play solid for most of the game, then he's going to make one massive mistake that's going to lead to a goal. So please, no Mete. Essentially the exact same thing versus Cagliari. Got to come out strong. I would still start with the same lineup if it's working. If it works against Torino, stay with it, because at this point, there's only a few games left. Don't really change, if it's working well. But also, same thing, don't be afraid to change it up if it's not working well. One thing I would say is that for the Torino game, I don't think it matters too much who our center back pairing ends up being. I think with their strikers, they don't have anybody who I'm essentially, with their play style, worried about exposing one of our attackers. What I would say though is against Cagliari, because they've got kind of late flooding runners like a Nandez who's quicker and more kind of shifty, then I would definitely include Tomori, because that's going to really give you that extra guy who has that pace to keep up with a Nandez if he comes in and makes that late run, especially playing on that left side there. So I feel like that one has to include Tomori there. Whereas Torino game, I don't really think it matters. I think you just kind of keep it the same and you just roll Kairi Tomori, but I don't think it's going to be that big either way. Cagliari, I do think it will change the game. Once again, though, no Mete. So thank you guys for tuning in. Big week here. By next Sunday, we will hopefully be qualified for Champions League if we're able to pull both these games off. Truthfully, if we don't do it, it's hard to say, but we don't deserve it. So these are going to be massive games. We're going to see our team's character. I hope Pioli does not have more bad weeks like he's had for the past several months here, and puts the right players in the right spots to succeed. Take care, everybody, and as always, Forza Milan.